PS3 and Xbox 360 emulation has reached a whole new level. It's finally good now, and right now is the best time to try it out. And with the help of Red Magic and their brand new Titan 16 Pro, that's exactly what I want to test. How well do these emulators run on a proper, beefy machine, and how hard can you actually push these games? I can't wait to show you what I discovered. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there like me that remember that PS3 and 360 emulation exist, but in my head, it just exists as this thing that I remember seeing like maybe 5 or 6 years ago and then just never really looked into it. And I have no idea if 360 and PS3 emulation is any good or not right now. And that's what I really wanted to test out. How good is the PC emulation scene right now? And like, what can you really do if you have like a proper beefy machine like this one? Okay, so what are we testing this on? Well, I knew that in order to benchmark high-end emulators like this, we needed a pretty powerful machine. So this is the Red Magic Titan 16 Pro. Now you might have heard of the company Red Magic before. They're the guys that are known for their super overpowered gaming phones with like built-in cooling fans, capacitive triggers, and as of recently, waifus, I guess? Okay, yeah, I can't do that. And this is their very first proper gaming laptop. The guys at Red Magic heard that I was doing a video on benchmarking PC emulation, and they thought this machine would be a perfect fit for this video. So big thanks to them for sponsoring this video. My idea for this thing is to be the all-in-one emulation machine for everything you need. Okay, so what are we looking at in terms of specs? Well, this model comes equipped with an Intel Core i9-14900HX, 16 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte SSD, and an RTX 4060. It's a bit of a weird combination, I won't lie. But the GPU on this one is special because it houses a full 140 watt 4060, which means this is about the best performing 4060 you're going to be able to find in a laptop form factor, which means it runs buttery smooth with any game you can throw at it. And this is crucial for both the PS3 and the 360 emulation that we're going to be trying. It's got a 16-inch display running at 1600p, which is basically 1440p with just like a little bit on the top and a little bit on the bottom. It's also equipped with NVIDIA G-Sync that just looks incredible. And it has a max 500 nits of brightness. Yes, it is an IPS panel, but it more than makes up for it for its, no joke, 240 Hz refresh rate. It's buttery smooth. And of course, it has RGB all around the machine. And yes, each part can be configured individually with their built-in software, whatever color you want. I'm personally more of like a blue kind of guy. I don't know what color you would call this. Like, it's like a blue cyan, light blue type thing. I don't know. Oh, and lots of ports in this thing too. 3 USB ports, a full HDMI 2.1 port, which means it can output at 4K 144 Hz, and of course, a full Thunderbolt 4 USB-C port, which means I can power a bunch of stuff, 4K monitors, mouse, keyboard, multiple storage drives, headphones, all from just a single cable. I actually edited this entire video on this machine, so you know I actually put it through its paces and not just reading off specs here. It's held up really, really well. And of course, modern games run incredibly well on this thing too. I tested all of these games at 1440p because it is a more common resolution that everyone is just a lot more familiar with, but all of these will easily run at its native 1600p, pretty much the same. Everything from first-person shooters like Doom Eternal and Overwatch 2, to really big driving games like Forza Horizon 5 and Need for Speed Unbound, and even the bigger, more open-world type single-player games like Cyberpunk and Spider-Man Miles Morales ran super smooth, all on ultra settings. But what I was really interested in is how well do these machines perform on high-end emulation? Not like the PS1, like GameCube type level emulation. No, I wanted like proper high-end demanding PS3 and 360. So let me show you what I discovered. Okay, so let's talk about the 360. With the recent shutdown of the Xbox 360 store, there's a lot of games that are sadly stuck on the 360. Now, the Series X has great backwards compatibility, don't get me wrong. But some people don't have Xboxes, and a lot of the 360 games that aren't backwards compatible never will be. Like, I don't know if you guys do this, but the backwards compatibility program that they had, yeah, that's done officially. We're not getting any more. Whatever we got, that's it. So if you wanted to play games like Doritos Crash Course 2, too bad. You're gonna have to live a sad life without it. That is, until now. There's a 360 emulator called Xenia, and it's made some really big jumps in advancements, and lots of older games are playable now. And a lot of them even have mod support. And unlike other emulators, there's no need for any BIOSes or anything, just drag in your games and you're good to go. The catch? Well, unfortunately, while it is easy to install, it's really not user-friendly to configure. There's not really a menu or an interface really. When you download it, you have to make a folder structure to set up a config file. Then if you want to change your resolution, you got to modify a .txt file and find the right line to change your resolution. And if you want to change your controller profile, you got to book an appointment over the phone. It's a whole thing. Well, great news. All of this can be bypassed by using a tool called Xenia Manager, which aims to get rid of all of this difficult setup. It'll install Xenia for you with one click, give you a really nice interface, and most importantly, it'll actually give you sliders and switches for everything. Thank God. Okay, now I know what I'm doing in here. From here, there's a lot of options that you can tweak. A lot of this can be left alone, honestly. Only thing I'd really mention is that there is anti-aliasing and AMD FSR upscaling if a game is too blurry. Oh, and pretty much all games run at 720p by default, so if you just want to up the resolution of your games, it's not this setting. Apparently that's just the size of the fake TV that it's running on. No, you have to scroll down here to draw resolution scale. 1x is just native 720p, 2x is 1440p, 3x is 4K, 5x is 6K, you get the idea. And let me tell you, this absolutely makes a huge difference in games. Games like Burnout Revenge can run at 1440p, 60 frames, and the 360 port of this game was actually the best version, so aside from a few visual glitches, it ends up looking really, really clean. By the way, I used to love this game as a kid. What was up with that? Like, did we ever stop and think why so many people found a game that had you like ramming traffic at 200 miles an hour really fun? Are we okay? Anyways, keep in mind some games will break if the resolution is set too high. For example, like this, where everything just ends up with all these really weird, crazy colors. If this happens, just turn down the resolution. Oh, and you can also keep settings for specific games too. So if one game runs well at 720p, but another one can go all the way up to 1440p, you can keep configurations separate so you don't have to change it every time. It's really, really neat. Importing your games is also stupid easy. Xenia has a great guide on how to rip your own games. I'll link it in the description. But basically, they're just ISO files. You just hit add game, and it'll try to detect what game it is. And that's it. Now it's added to your library with a really nice looking cover art. Again, the original Xenia has none of this. From here, you can just click the game you want and just start playing. No problem. It should just work. And lots of the good exclusive games are already compatible. So like Gears of War 2 and 3 are only live on Xbox. They never got a proper port to PC like Gears 1 did. But using Xenia, we can play them upscaled with an unlocked frame rate, and it looks really, really good. Now some games will run, but they might have some graphic issues. Like for example, Gears of War has this really weird bug where some of the shadows will be solid black. Or in Forza, where the motion blur has like a weird square around the cars for some reason. But that brings me to my next point, community-made patches. Yeah, Xenia Manager makes it really easy to install them with just one click. You just hit load patches, click on any of them, and it'll automatically download a bunch of patches for your games that can do all kinds of stuff. Look at that. Gears already has a black shading fix right there. And while I'm here, I'm also gonna get rid of the 2000s era bloom that makes this game look really blurry. So now the game can run exactly as intended. Combine this with upscaling, and these Xbox 360 games could genuinely pass off as modern releases today. The patches also have a lot of other options that you can do, stuff like uncapping the frame rate, so games that originally ran at 30 frames can now just run at 60 frames, and even higher if your machine can support it, like this one. And you can even set custom configurations for 360p or 480p, or if you want to remove all the shadows in case you have like a really low end PC that can't handle games even at 720p. Although I promise you, you won't have to deal with that with this machine. And I want you to remember that if you wanted to do any of this before, again, all of it had to be done manually by editing a config file. And if you right click on your game, it'll take you to a compatibility page to see any other bugs that other people might have discovered and how to fix them. Again, they've made this super simple for people to follow. And look, turns out there's a 60 FPS mode for this game, and all it takes is turning on 2 settings. See, I didn't even know that if I didn't check the compatibility page. A few cons that I should mention, there's no support for Xbox Live indie games. I don't know if you guys remember that program. And Xbox Live arcade games are pretty broken still. I haven't had any luck getting anything worthwhile running. So stuff like Doritos Crash Course has no avatar information, so you just get a black screen. And a lot of other games will just hang on loading screens forever. Or a game will be playable, but it has like a really glaring emulation issue that just has no fix at the moment. I think arcade games still need a little bit more time to bake, but I'm still really impressed how far Xenia has come in the last few years. And now that the Microsoft Store has officially shut down on the 360, preservation for this console is going to be more important than ever, and I'm just glad that we still have a way to play these games so many years later. Okay, I have a soft spot for this next console, I won't lie. The PS3. Listen, I know a lot of people grew up with the Xbox 360, but a lot of my experience and my memories were with the PS3. I experienced the golden years of COD, the Plastic Instruments phase. Where the hell are my Skylanders? Like, I swear I had like 20 of these. Like, at some point, everyone had these. Where did they go? I had 3 PS3s growing up. The first one was an OG fat model, which didn't have backwards compatibility. My little sister at the time tossed in a little lollipop into the disk drive, and it never worked again. I had the slim version, which an adult friend gave me that just stopped working for some reason. I have no idea why. And this one, the Super Slim. I'll be honest, it looks a little bit beat up. There's some parts missing here and there, but that's just because it's like a really old console and it's moved with me like a lot in the past. A few years ago, I actually like restored it and I did a whole bunch of stuff to it. I took it apart and I cleaned it out because I'm sure at this point, this thing is pretty old. I'm pretty sure the thermal paste in that thing was chalk at that point. You know, for all the time that I spent with this PS3 in my life, I actually really haven't talked much about the PS3 on this channel. Don't let me forget. Put something in the comments saying, Jeff, put a PS3 video or something. Anyways, this one in particular hit me hard because I remember back in the day, there was like this general consensus that PS3 emulation would just never be possible. It's too hard. It's too complicated. Sony's not going to do it because, you know, the power of the cell architecture and the processor and all this stuff would be way too much. Not possible. It's not happening. Then came RPCS3, a PS3 emulator that was really trying to tackle this issue and trying to figure out how they can actually make this thing run. And at first, yeah, it was actually like a pretty rough start. I remember seeing the footage of the emulator running and it was like really, really rough. They were super basic games that were running and they had a ton of graphics issues. But sure enough, we gave them a few more years and the team really, really picked up some massive breakthroughs. And today they've made an incredible amount of progress on the emulator. As of today, 97% of PS3 games are playable or at least in-game now. At this point, they're done with the whole, oh, let's just try to get these games running at all phase of the emulator now. No, now they're moving on to like fun stuff like optimization, PlayStation Move support, mod support, and really, really good online support, which I'll get into in a second. In terms of PC requirements, you still need to have a pretty decent machine to run these nicely. They recently just upped their hardware requirements as I was writing this video. So the website asks for at least an Intel Core i9 12000 or a 13000 series. This Red Magic Titan has a beefy Intel Core i9 14000 series, which means this thing won't even be breaking a sweat when it comes to playing games. So this is what the emulator looks like when you first boot it up. You can just hide the log if it scares you. Now, RPCS3 does require a BIOS firmware to run. I can't exactly tell you where to get that, but no, wait. Actually, I can tell you where to get that. It's right here on Sony's website for free. Yeah, the latest update file is all you need to get this thing running. It'll set up all the file structures and everything for you. And afterwards, you can get a little bit of the old school PS3 setup experience and even check out the old XMB. Now, onto games. You can dump your game using any of the Blu-ray drives listed on RPCS3's website, but if you already have a bunch of games, odds are you already own the best Blu-ray game ripper. Yeah, your PS3 can be modded to rip games with like 2 buttons, just copy paste it over to a flash drive. It's really simple. In terms of files, there's 2 files you got to be familiar with for the PS3, PKG files and RAT files. PKG files are like the actual content, so it could be like a game or a DLC file or an update file. These are really easy to install. You just go up to File, hit Install Package, pick your file, and you're done. Now you will find that some games, but not all games, will require a license to actually run them. No worries, that's what the RAT file is for. It's literally just the license that goes alongside the game. Don't worry, when you dump your games, it should have both the RAT file and the PKG file bundled together. You don't even have to worry about it. And sometimes some apps will just dump your game in just a folder, which is even easier to install. Just drag and drop it into your RPCS3 and you're done. All right, once you got your games loaded up, it's time to play. Now, the first time you open a game, it's going to compile it. PS3 emulation is really difficult, so it needs to translate everything to a language that your PC will understand first. It usually takes a minute or two. Sometimes it can be 10, 15 minutes, depending on the game. The worst offender, I think, was Metal Gear Solid 4, where it took an hour and 40 minutes before it was ready to play. But you only have to do it once, and once you're in, the game should just play as normal. Now, I wanted to focus specifically on games that are stuck on the PS3 because there hasn't been like a re-release or a remaster or anything because, let's be honest, Sony has a bad habit of just abandoning games for new series. And these games run really well on this machine. I've been running most of these at 1440p with an unlocked frame rate, and plenty of games are able to run these super smooth. I tried it out with some of the older Ratchet & Clank games, and even with the Cumbuster on screen, we're still floating around 60 frames at 1440p. Newer games like Into the Nexus can run at a locked 60 FPS at 1440p, which looks amazing. I honestly don't know why we ever regressed back to 30 FPS Ratchet & Clank games. They just look much better at 60. Infamous also runs really well in this emulator, and since this one has an uncapped frame rate right out of the box, it hits 60 frames, no problem. And of course, Littlebigplanet, my beloved. This one sadly has no 60 FPS patch, but that just means we're able to push the resolution much higher with no drawbacks. So Littlebigplanet 2 can run at 4K, completely locked at 30 frames, and man, what a world of difference this makes. Even though the original game runs at 720p, this is how I remember the game in my head. Some of the more intense looking games will run more around the 40 to 50 FPS range, but mind you, these were still locked to just 30 on the PS3, so this is still a pretty good enhancement, especially at 1440p. Okay, you get the idea. PS3 is running really good on this machine. You get it. I don't want to bore you with that. So, something that really stood out to me about this emulator is the online play. Built into RPCS3 is an online system called RPCN that lets you play online with other people using the emulator, even though Sony shut down a lot of these servers years ago. It's really easy to set up. Making an account in the emulator takes like 2 minutes tops. Perfect, right there. And what makes it special to me is that there are some amazing groups that have popped up around the emulator that are trying to revive very old online services to make them run better than before. There's a lot of these mini communities running around, but here's just a quick highlight of some of the more interesting ones that I saw. Destination Home is a preservation project built to completely restore the functionality of the original PlayStation Home app. Yeah, you guys remember this game, right? It was like PlayStation's version of Second Life, or VR chat, except with like way less furries. Never mind. And they're making some really solid progress. There was a lot of games and media that was lost, sadly, when the servers were shut down, and their main goal is to gather as much of that data as possible. All the worlds, all the clothing and the accessories, all the promo videos, the mini games, all of it. And this actually tripped me out because I remember going to this exact world when Sony's presentation at E3 just wrapped up, and they're all like, hey, we have a world in PS Home. You can go check out all the trailers and news that we just dropped. Go check it out. So being able to see this again is just really cool to see. What, you don't remember telling your crush to meet you at the PS Vita lounge? Damn, that's crazy. They're doing a great job archiving as much as they can, but they still need a lot of help because a lot of this was lost to time, and a lot of it is running off of data contributions from the community. So if you still have a PS3 that might have PS Home data on it from like 10 years ago, please go rip it. The Destination Home community will be more than happy to run you through how to dump that data. They killed Littlebigplanet, those cowards. Okay, look, I have a big bias towards Littlebigplanet. I won't even lie. I loved these games growing up. I still remember when the Hollywood Video near my house was closing down and they had Littlebigplanet 1 on clearance for $6.99. Didn't know anything about the game, but man, this game stuck with me forever. I remember playing the community levels with my sister for hours as a kid. But just a year ago, they did this awful thing where they said, hey guys, just a heads up, we're going to be turning off the servers for a little while. We're just taking care of some maintenance, nothing to worry about. We'll see you guys in a few days. And then for 4 months, complete silence until they finally said, actually, the servers aren't coming back up anymore. Sorry guys. No warning, no final goodbye, just, hey, we're done now. Millions of levels were lost. Well, turns out some members of the community expected this and have been backing up lots of levels over the years now. And now it's really easy to access them and restore the online services of the game. Now there's like 5 or 6 different communities that have popped up. There's like Beacon, Little Big Refresh, Project Lighthouse, Little Big Workshop, Littlebigplanet Infinite. There really is no wrong answer to try, just try any of them out. They all pretty much do the same thing though, which is restore online functionality so you can go back and play all of the old levels that were rescued before the shutdown. And yes, you can play with your friends too. And there's tons to explore here. While sadly a lot of the levels have been lost to time, people are contributing tons of levels still. And there's still so much to explore. A lot of really, really well-polished levels, like the Key in the Misty Mountains, or the Hanging Windows, or Kill SpongeBob? Oh my god. There's lots to explore here. And even though Sony has given up on Littlebigplanet, the community is still more than willing to keep this game alive. Okay, can I be honest with you? This whole video was just an excuse to talk about Rock Band. Yes, I am personally in love with the Rock Band games. Little hidden fact about me is that this series was actually what convinced me to grow out my hair when I was a kid. Yeah, Christmas 2008, I was 10 years old creating my character on Rock Band 1, picking out hairstyles for my character, and I scrolled past the long hairstyles and I thought, hey,
that's pretty good.
And the rest is history. Anyways, sadly, these games had their servers shut down about a year ago now, and support for all of the Rock Band games have now pretty much been shut down. Enter Rock Band 3 Deluxe. A Rock Band 3 mod designed to overhaul pretty much everything. It lets you add custom songs, it increases the song limit to 16,000, it adds custom track themes, uncaps the frame rate for the venues, and a bunch of other quality of life improvements. The biggest one in my opinion is that hooking up guitars on Rock Band games was really wonky on emulators, partly because if the exact Rock Band guitar isn't detected, it just won't let you play that instrument. But with Rock Band 3 Deluxe, just bind it to whatever buttons you want, and now you can play with any guitar. So I have the Fortnite Riffmaster here, and I can play all of my old song packs without any issue. And yes, there's lots of song packs and DLCs that you can go install and load up your collection with 0 issues. Now, yes, I do recognize that Clone Hero and Yarg exist on PC already, and those options are great. But I'm gonna be honest, the lack of no real career mode is kind of a bummer. And in my opinion, there's just very little personality in those games compared to Rock Band's aesthetic. Plus, I honestly just miss these games a lot, honestly. They were a really big part of my childhood. This is easily one of the best mods you can try on RPCS3. Definitely go give it a try. And of course, there's lots of other communities I don't have time to cover. There really is a lot here. And in terms of future plans for the emulator, their long-term goals are to get things like being able to connect to the real PS3s online, running PS3 games straight from the discs, and so much more. The future of the PS3 is far from dead, and I can't wait to see where RPCS3 will be in a few years from now. Oh, and that whole belief about Sony not being able to emulate the PS3 because it was like way too hard or whatever. I mean, I always thought that was kind of BS. I mean, my brother in Christ, you made the console. But that wasn't true. They just didn't care. And I can prove it too. So Time Magazine actually did an interview with Jim Ryan, which was the head of Sony Entertainment at the time in 2017. And they asked him a bunch of different questions about like emulation and backwards compatibility and VR and stuff like that. And they just straight up came out and asked him, how come we haven't seen any sort of PS3 emulation on the PS4 this deep into the generation? Now, he said that it's because he feels that not a lot of people would use it. But there's another quote in this article that kind of stood out to me, and it really, really has been bugging me for years now. I can say it is one of those features that is very much requested, but not actually used much. That, and I was at a Gran Turismo event recently where they had PS1, PS2, PS3, and PS4 games. And the PS1 and PS2 games, they looked ancient. Like, why would anybody play this? When I heard this quote, I was really peeved, honestly. And maybe I'm just like misinterpreting it or something, but it sounds to me like he's saying, why play old game when we have new game? Like they actually just could not fathom the idea of someone not wanting to play an older game just because it didn't look like Horizon Zero Dawn or something. I don't know. Point is, they always had the capability. They just didn't care. Oh, but they'll be more than happy to resell your own games by subscribing to PlayStation Premium's Classics catalog. It's only $160 a year. Either way, I'm just glad that we have emulators like RPCS3 so that we can still keep playing our old games with high resolutions, better frame rates, and a bunch of other stuff. Okay, so what'd you think? I had no idea any of this was happening in the emulation scene at all. To me, the PS3 and the 360 still feel like modern consoles, even though I know they're both almost 20 years old at this point. I hope I made it a little bit easier for you to be able to hop in and give this a try, now that the scene is a little bit more mature now. I am really impressed with how far emulation has come for these consoles. Now, I did have another section on where we are with the Nintendo Switch because the scene is a little bit confusing right now after what happened with Nintendo, but this video already ended up being pretty long and Nintendo's kind of out right now for blood, so I don't think it'd be the best idea. And don't worry, I haven't forgotten about the PS4 and the Xbox One. There are some really exciting things happening with those consoles. Who knows, maybe I'll post a video about that in like the Patreon or in the Discord somewhere, or some link in the description, by the way. I want to thank Red Magic for graciously sponsoring this video and giving us some hardware to test out this emulation on. Of course, if you like the performance that you saw in the video, I'll leave a link to where you can buy this Titan 16 Pro in the description. It's a really impressive machine, especially for their very first laptop. Okay, now I don't want you to waste any time. Click over here to check out another awesome video, and thank you for watching.